Hey, I went back with another book review. So I finished Dennis Prager's Exodus. What a brilliant man, and what a brilliant book. It's basically like a bibliography, but different because it's told from a Jewish perspective, and it also gives lots of reasonings behind everything, and it's just kind of an exploratory, he calls it the rational Bible. That's actually the best word for it. Rational. I should have just used his words. Oh well. But it gives such an account of how the Jews came out of Egypt, and the importance of what happened, and why the commandments were given, which I think is probably my favorite part, and like the one that like really impacted me the most, because my brain is like lived in the Christian world my whole life, and lived in our society. Our society is still like pretty based in Christianity / Judaism, and I think like you don't think about like the rules, like don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery, like don't covet your neighbor's stuff, like all of those rules and like laws, that the 10 commandments that were given to us, what was before that? Like we didn't even, like for me personally, I didn't even think like, oh, blah 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 blah, what was before that? And I'm like, oh, God hadn't given any commandments. Like there was no commandments. I mean, like some things were like morally assumed, but there was no like physical written commandments that were by God, that God had actually written down. And so I think that's one of the most fascinating things to me to think about, is like, oh, it was a pagan society. Like pagan society had no rules, no regulations, blah 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 blah. And I think the other thing is that Dennis Prager does an amazing job of putting it in perspective of what it is from a Jewish perspective. Well, because he's Jewish, which should be like a no-brainer, but like for me it's different. And I think I just enjoyed so much getting to hear his perspective and how he views things, because I think some Christians in the outer world kind of poo-poo Judaism and Jews, and I'm just like, well, why? And then like it's like Jesus was a Jew, and like I think some people are a little off base in poo-pooing that, but so I don't know quite why the reasoning is, but it makes me want to read more Jewish manuscripts and more stuff from that perspective, because the Bible was written by Jews for Jews. That was the whole purpose of the Old Testament, at least. And then the New Testament was written for everybody, but like it gives you better perspective. I was listening to a podcast, actually, it made me think about something in the New Testament about stuff being written for a certain group of people. And I think it was Ephesians or something like that, of what the people, those are letters to a certain group of people in a certain demographic. And I think that as people, we forget that this is written for specific people and for specific time periods, and it's always applicable. I think that you can still find so much knowledge throughout the Bible, but like you also have to take in perspective of why the author, whoever the author is writing the Bible. And like I think Dennis Prager does this amazingly, like with describing this in the Exodus book. It just is all, it's just kind of brilliant, because it breaks down every single thing. Like you want to have a question about chapter 10 verse 2, it's broken down for you. Like I love the breakdown and where it comes from and everything. It's so important to know why things were written and where they were written, and I cannot like be more like woohoo for a book, And this is by the way, like kind of like a study Bible kind of thing, because it took me 2 years to get through it, which is a long time for me. I usually kind of blow through books, but like I really thought about everything and like made me like really think about stuff a lot more than I usually do. And I just, oh, it was just so good. Because I would have to put it down and then pick it back up, put it back down, put it back, pick it back up. But I think I'm actually really excited for the next one. I remember seeing something where Prager says that this is how you should read it. I think it's supposed to be Exodus, Deuteronomy, and then back to Genesis is how it's supposed to be read. I could be wrong. Please forgive me if I'm misquoting, but that's why I started with Exodus, because it's not the first book of the Bible, but it's the first laws, the first book of laws. It's the ones that first show the change in society, this change in the Jewish community, the change of the people. And I think I do totally see his importance of saying you need to read Exodus first. And then I think Deuteronomy is next, which I've already started. But if you have not read this, go out and read this. But I definitely highly recommend it. It's really heady a little bit, but it gives such great explanations for everything that it makes it so clear and so easy to understand, that I wish I could have read it sooner, but it didn't come out until a few years ago, like 2018. So, but definitely highly recommend. I hope you all enjoyed this review and my rantings and ravings, and y'all have a great day.